Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Coffee with Content Creators podcast. It has been a minute since we have published a new episode here, so I hope you guys are all doing really well. I'm excited to be back creating content, publishing content. I've got a few interviews and conversations that have actually been in the backlog that I'm excited to share with all of you. The one is today with Victoria Taylor. She's the head of content at a company called Visme. Okay, and we actually have a common connection here with our founders, which you guys are going to learn during this conversation. And we talked all about content, the creator economy, actually, also sort of the other side of the coin here, which is working inside of a brand, inside of a platform, a SaaS, a software as a service that serves content creators as well. And so we're both actually locally from Vancouver, very small world. And so I'm really excited for you guys to meet Victoria in this conversation. I think you guys are going to learn a lot. And yeah, and make sure that you connect with her. I'm going to have all of her information, LinkedIn, all that stuff in the show notes. And so make sure you connect with her. All right. And as always, if you guys are new to the podcast, welcome. Really glad that you're here. If you've been here before, then glad to have you back and hanging out here with me for the next little while. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. That way you get notified of all the new episodes. There's going to be more new episodes more frequently moving forward here. Took a little bit of a break. There was just, a lot going on. I was traveling quite a fair bit for work, different conferences, and just heads down on a lot of things on campaigns, and you know how those go. So there's always seasons, especially with work. But we're back. We're back creating content. Really excited for this conversation, for you guys to catch this conversation, and also start recording again. I'm going to be recording new episodes again more frequently. And so if there's anything that you guys want to hear, if there's somebody that you think I should connect with and have a conversation around, whether it's the creator economy, working at different software companies, folks that are representing other brands, anything around building those revenue streams in the creator economy space, in the tech space, I'd love to hear about it. All right. If you have any specific questions as well, I'm always really eager to hear and learn what those are. And also, if you haven't yet, make sure you check out my YouTube channel and Instagram as well. That has slightly different types of content there. Yeah, make sure you check those out as well and connect with me on those platforms. All right. So without further ado, I'm excited for you guys to meet my friend, Victoria Taylor. Awesome. All right. Victoria, welcome to the podcast. Really glad to have you here. It's been way overdue to connect, even on a call. So, really glad to hang out with you for the next little while here. Before we jump into things, just take a couple minutes, just introduce yourself to the audience, to the listeners, and who you are, what you do, and we'll chat.
Okay, I mean, Rob, better late than never. So happy to be on the call. So I'm Victoria Taylor. I'm a content marketing strategist and consultant. I mainly work with B2B and SaaS brands, and I've been doing it for almost a decade now. So I've got a lot of skin in the game, and it's something I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Yeah, we had met. I think you were still at Mailbird. I was, I think, at Thinkific at the time, and
Yeah,
were you working downtown as well? Was Mailbird downtown, or was it remote?
Mailbur was remote, but I was still traveling back and forth into Vancouver during that time.
Yeah, gotcha. I
Yeah.
think that's was crossing paths, but now here we are though. It's all good. So, yeah. So, tell me a little bit about your sort of like experience with SaaS companies and in the content space. Yeah. What kind of like how did you kind of get into this whole crazy world?
Okay, I'll start from the origin story.
Yeah. Please.
Initially, I actually have a background in structural engineering. So I studied engineering. I have the mindset of an engineer, which is why I'm so structured and so strategic. But I did not like engineering. And then I just happened to find a company that needed to do marketing, fell into it. And so I've been a self taught marketer for the past 9 years. So I don't have degrees or diplomas, as good as they are, to kind of hide behind. Everything that I have is from experience. So that's a little bit about me. And I fell into SaaS because I really enjoyed tech, but I enjoyed the B2B space a little bit more than the B2C space, though there's
Mm,
probably like what, a 5-10% difference, because at the end of the day, you're still marketing to a human being. That's
mhm.
still a person behind the company. And part of what I do is helping SaaS companies kind of lean away from the misconceptions that SaaS companies should be and lean into what their content strategy can really reflect on their brand and their goals.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, like this, in terms of like structural engineering to marketing, how did you, were you consuming, what were you using to like, were you consuming YouTube videos, podcasts, like just
I
jump
was
right in, like
consuming
how,
and creating at the same time.
gotcha.
So because I'm such a practical learner, reading something it just doesn't stick. I have to like put it into practice. So I was making YouTube videos, I was building a blog, I was doing my own social media. Anything that I would tell a client to do, it would be something that I've already done for myself. And I would know this didn't work, this worked. So I wasn't talking vicariously or theoretically, I was talking very practically. And that was actually what caught the eye of my first company that I worked with, and even another agency. It was the fact that I had the work, I had the results, I had a portfolio that I built, and I'm still that type of person where it's like I'd like to experiment on my own, even when I'm working with a company or working with a client. So that's kind of how I fell into it, and I it was an aha moment. You know, when you start creating and you're like, I think this is for me. Like
Yeah.
that was my moment.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. And so now you're working mainly on B2B. The companies that you've been working with B2B. Even Visme now. I guess Visme is more B2B, or is it more like still B2C, or
So
a bit of
before I
both?
came on, they were B2C, and
Mm,
when I they brought me in because they wanted to have a more B2B approach.
okay.
So Visme is a direct competitor to Canva,
Mm,
right? But it's kind of that really nice sweet spot between the complexity of Adobe and the simplicity of Canva. And so my job was, how do I translate that type of content, whether it's written, whether it's visual, to other professionals who are there. And so it's, a platform for serious marketers, serious content creators, people who want something that's scalable as well. Because the thing with Canva is, it's good. It's a good platform. Most of our content creation origin stories also include Canva. But we
mm.
kind of grow into different tools that help us as we evolve and scale along the way, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Like, there's so many of those like sort of like general tools that are like the bright and shiny household names, and then eventually you kind of like, well, I kind of needed something really more specific, or whether it's B2B, or like a specific industry. Like I do find a lot of those tools. CRM is one of these things, right? It's like there's like the pipe drives in Salesforce, but people are like, I need the Salesforce or pipe drive for lawyers or personal
Right.
trainers. Like they get very
Exactly.
specific to it. Yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. And so with Visme, you guys are all fully remote, and
Yep,
I
we're
get,
all
yeah,
fully remote. Big team, really driven people. Content we have to, and we do use the tool Visme while we're working as well, right? And so it's a big part of our workflow as well.
nice, awesome, awesome. And so then I guess when it comes to B2B, working with companies in terms of their content, what are like the common challenge? What are the challenges that you kind of come across, when it comes to like content and then driving revenue? Like how do you like what comes to mind?
Yeah.
Like what's in your heart when you hear that kind of thing?
It makes me want to take a shot, but apart from that, Um, I think the biggest thing that's happened is the past two Google Core updates and how it's really forced SaaS brands and B2B brands to start taking EEAT seriously when it comes to content. And so things that we used to rely on super heavily on, like just having an article purely for SEO, is great. And that's not to say that that doesn't work, but you have to do a little bit more of that, right? So the EAT is expertise, experience, authority, and trust. Is that content building that? If it's purely just SEO centric without giving the user what they need, then they're going to fall off and Google is going to do something. And of course, we all know Google, when it comes to content, is not our friend. It's more of a frenemy, right? And so we had to kind of navigate that. And I've been talking with a few founders who are in SaaS, and they've kind of seen how their traffic, how their top pages are really struggling because of the changes that are being required, as well as the debate between should AI content be used on your blog in your content versus human content. And Google is very ambiguous about that because it's probably itself still deciding. It's an entire black box. But also revenue when it comes to SaaS is one of the biggest things that struggles LTV, brand awareness, and also really just driving the gap between traffic and conversion. And so that's where most B2B brands and that's where most of the wrestling is when it comes with content. And kind of letting people realize that content by itself is not enough. Content needs to be integrated with your product, with your sales, with your customer success. So when I'm working on content, I'm not working in a silo. I'm making sure I'm liaisoning with the demand generator, with the customer success manager, with the sales manager, with the product manager, even with the designers that we speak with because we have a design based product. And that's how we kind of have a more 360-degree approach to creating content that helps to drive revenues. Again, one of the things is that when it comes to marketing, there's always a competitor out there who wants to do it, who is or who wants to do it better than you. And it's the balance of revenue and content is being proactive while also being reactive at the same time. Oh, hold on. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Okay. Oh, I
Can
can
you hear
hear
me
you
now?
now.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. Microphone just gave out, so we got to change. All right, we'll clip that part out. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So in terms of content, which channels are you guys prioritizing? Like, or which channels do you tend to invest the most, time and resources into for a B two B?
So the biggest one, especially when it comes to SaaS, is definitely content marketing with the blog,
Hmm.
blog ads, and also paid. Those are the biggest things. Webinars are a big part of it, but we do have webinar fatigue, so we have to be really strategic about the topics, the people we bring in. It can't just be about buy, sell, sell, sell. It has to be about how do we add value to you.
Hmm.
So blog, um, paid, webinar, and I would also say newsletters. Newsletters, it's a one-to-one channel. It's a
Hmm.
staple. It's never going away, no matter what people say. So those would
Hmm.
be the channels.
Got it. Got it. And I mean, there's so much content out there, especially for tech and SaaS, and now, with AI, of course. Like, how do you kind of um, stand out? Like, how do you yeah, just stand out from all the noise that's kind of being generated out there now? It's just so much easier to create content than it was like 5, 10 years ago.
100%.
Yeah.
I think the number one thing that I see some SaaS companies overlook is branding. And the trouble with branding when it comes to founders is that sometimes it's not measurable. Sometimes the
Hmm.
ROI isn't always trackable because the customer journey isn't linear. It's very like all over the place, different
Yeah.
touch points as it comes. So branding and community is where people fall short. They think that if you build something, people are going to come, but you actually have to have somebody who's actively doing that, whether it's building a community with the customers that you already have or
Hmm.
building a community with people who could be potentially customers. And then branding also isn't just a fancy word where it stops at like logo logo and color. It's about creating branded keywords. How are your branded keywords increasing? Like, is the search rate is increasing? Is the volume increasing? If not, that means people aren't searching for your brand more organically, and that's where you want to get to the point to, because that's how those big brands get to where they are, because people know their names and they're searching for them specifically. So investing in branded SEO, branded content, branded paid, and also just branded social media and community.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Um, yeah, and I guess when it comes to that, then are you creating content? Because now again, people are using ChatGPT and Gemini like to do a lot of their. Anyways, we're finding that that's kind of where they start their search sometimes versus even Google. And so, are you creating content for SERPs? Or are you creating content for AI? Like, or is it the same? Really, same approach?
Uh, I would say for me, I found that, how do I put this? So when it comes to research, I kind of do it the old fashioned way. I will
Mm.
use AI as a sparring partner, but
Mm.
sometimes the information that AI will give you is incorrect. And you
Mm.
won't know that unless you research, because a lot of people think, oh, AI is kind of like an adult, when it's like, no, the way that the AI industry is, he's still in kindergarten. We still have to teach stuff. We still have to go, you wouldn't put a kid in like an executive level position and be like, here, do this.
Right.
That's the same way it comes with content. So it's kind of something like, if you want to brainstorm ideas, if you want to kind of figure out structures, but still, you still have to go through a pseudo journey of how the person is going to find you. So I'm old school. If let's say we want to rank for a certain keyword and create content around it, the first thing I use is I go to Google, type in, see what are the top articles that come up there, commonly asked questions. Second is I go into an SEO tool, see how it's doing. I gather that information, and then I spar with my AI tool to see, okay, does this work or does this not work? Is this layout the best layout? And then from there, it's all right, creating the blog content, but it has to go further than that. Is there a sales enablement tool that I can create from this content that I can give to the sales team or the customer success team that's going to help the customers we have continue to see us as the experts that they can trust with the tool that they're using? Also, can it be something that can be repurposed for social media? Can we turn this into a newsletter? And so it's kind of like creating micro agreements from either a large form of content, or you can do it on the flip side. If you're really budget constrained, is creating small pieces of content and getting micro agreements to then know if you should invest and turning it into a larger piece of content. So that's something that's kind of my approach when it comes to creating content in like a general type.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you're very strategic in how you then approach crafting the content, and then how you get the most out of that content. Sales enablement, for example. Like a lot of people don't really even think about that. I don't think anyway from my conversations. It's always like, all right, let's get like content out there so that we have inbound traffic or ads, but to get the content so that even sales enablement, right? Like for that purpose, I think is um, yeah, brilliant and overlooked by a lot of marketers out there.
It is. But I would also say it's not always in the sense that it gets overlooked. I think as content creators, we have so much things to do that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we have to sit down and carve out the time to brainstorm, which almost feels like a luxury, right? So I would say, like, for the person who's working really hard or like trying to execute so many strategies, carving out like an hour to just sit down, let your brain rest, and like think about things that you don't have to react to, but things that you want to build helps. And again, not being in a silo, like making
Mm.
sure that you're talking to the other departments to see what are their needs, because sometimes they're struggling as hard as you are, and the two of you can come together and create something really that's going to solve both your problems.
Yeah, no, I love that. So I imagine then like it's very cross-functional. It looks like that's kind of how you see your role. Like what's your rhythm and cadence on a monthly basis to like make sure you're checking in with all of these all of these different teams.
At Visme, I've been given the charge to force everyone to do a quarterly meeting. And
Nice.
And again, because we're moving at such rapid fire to get things done, to see, implement strategies, A/B tests, deal with
Mm.
this, fill the gaps here. Someone in your company or even a you have to take charge, be like, we need to stop, review what we have so far, because it's easy to just look on the charts on a weekly basis, but have like a retrospective. So we have a quarterly meeting where we talk about our findings, what we're going to do, and then we have a retrospective. And it's kind of like the the quarterly meeting is like the cocktail hour, but the retrospective is kind of like the dessert section. So you've had time
Mm,
to digest, see the information, and now you're kind of like thinking a little bit more proactively, like, okay, we could have done this, we can do that, we can fill this, and then you go for it. And if more SaaS teams take the time to build that, it really works. But it's so easy to just like brush it under the rug. But and again, you're working in an environment where it's like it's very results driven. If you're not seeing results right now, if you're not doing this, so it doesn't put you in the mindset of like, how can I fix this, how can I grow? You have to force it in there for it to
mm,
work. And
mm-hmm.
even as a creator, when you're working on your own brand, you get stuck working on you in your brand rather than working on your brand, or
Yeah.
in your content rather than vice versa.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That reminds me then. Yeah, I was in terms of like if you're chasing down like let's say particular keywords or search terms, um, when do you kind of know to like, okay, maybe we have to like shift. Like maybe we got to stop chasing this first page for this particular term and let's move on. Um, do you look at data? Do you kind of like what? How do you decide that? Like, all right, next quarter we're gonna continue the path, or you drop certain things and you shift, priorities.
Oh, 100%. So, first thing is data, which is,
Data.
I think data is probably the best, safest bet. So, for example, if you notice that you used to rank really high for red shoes with laces,
Mm-hmm.
but you notice that your landing page for red shoes with laces is outranking your blog content, then take a look at the keyword. Is it that Google decides that this keyword ranks better for this landing page as opposed to your blog post? Can your blog post still talk about the same topic but with a non-competing but similar keyword or long tail keyword? So looking at things like that, looking at the volume and KD, not necessarily to change the slug of your content, but to kind of tweak how you do this. So looking at the data to see what's changed, what Google prefers, what's beating or has been beaten by competitors. Two, looking at the content that you already have and refreshing it. A lot of the times we get caught up in creating that we forget that you can take a pause and you can just use the entire half of the year or the quarter to just refresh and update the content that you already have, because if your top landing pages starts to slip, it's not necessarily that you need to push ads on it, it's not necessarily that it's doing bad, it's just that there's something probably fresher and newer that's taking its place, and it's your job to kind of turn it into that evergreen content. Evergreen content doesn't just isn't published and done. It's content you go back to, you refresh, you reuse, and you keep it alive. And then three would be always take a look at what you can do better. So,
Mm-hmm.
again, going back to the user experience, if you were a user, would you be satisfied with this piece of content? Would you feel like it's outdated? Do you have an idea of the user that you're trying to target? Because if you're trying to say that you're targeting advanced people, but you're using beginner language, there's a disconnect. And also, like content distribution, take a look at all your different channels. Are they as strong as you think they are? What does the data say about that? And then kind of refigure, because sometimes your best channels, they can change over a long period of time because
Mm-hmm.
things happen, right? A couple of years ago, podcasts weren't, podcasts exist, but they weren't as important to a lot of companies. But now they're becoming a staple to build community, to build brand awareness, to open partnerships with people that you want to work with or people that you want to do ventures with. And so the importance of that comes into it, but it needs to be invested. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that. I one of the things that because I'm on the partnership side, so I get to work with a lot of our customers and our partners, and so our content team tends to tap me on the shoulder when they're like, hey, we need some snippets from customers, or we need like a customer testimonial or case studies, like where I mean, from my understanding, it's obviously not the best. Like case studies are not the best blog content to like sort of draw in new inbound leads. They're more like consideration stage and stuff. But
Bottom of the
um,
funnel.
yeah, bottom of the funnel. But do you like? Is there a space other than the bottom of the funnel for that? Is there any use for like the top of the funnel for sort of like working and collaborating with customers?
Yeah, 100%. So one thing that I always love to do is that when you're creating ads or you're creating CTAs for your blog, using the language that your customers use to describe you or the pain point that you solve is it's your go-to copy. Whether you decide to use it directly or whether you have a copywriter to kind of polish it over, that's one way to repurpose it. Using it in your newsletters, that's also a
Mm,
really great way to kind of drive people to get them initiated. So if they were at the beginning or the middle, you're kind of giving them a teaser of why they should make it to the bottom of the funnel. And also even turning it into social media content. So if you take a very large case study and you kind of break down and create a story, micro stories that you can turn into to posts, that's one way you can repurpose it for top of the funnel as well. Those are some
mm.
things off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. That's great. No, this is really good. Yeah, there's so much of content that I feel like a lot of people are like thinking about AI and all that, but there's just so much more that you can still do. Yeah, and I know we really are focused on kind of this conversation anyway around blog and SERPs and stuff,
Yeah.
but newsletters, is that also like all of that content is under your umbrella at Visme? Like newsletters,
Or
blog?
So for newsletters, I touch a little bit on the newsletters, but there's
Mm,
somebody there, our product manager, because most of our email newsletters are very product based in a way.
mm.
She handles that, and then I come in with a little bit of the mix to like make it not so product.
Yeah.
So I talk about like stories and engagement, and even when we do have a product newsletter to do, I'm like, why don't we tell them about our team's favorite tools that we like,
Mm,
our favorite features that we like using, and why we like using them? Why don't we use the experts that we have? That's another thing that SaaS brands underutilize is that they want to create expert content, and the flip side is that they either underutilize the team that they already have, which is like all you need. You don't need to have them like write articles, but you can grab quotes from them. And if I need a quote from the sales manager, I'm like, here's a question, send me a voice note, I'll polish it up, put it in the blog, we're good to go, right? Very
mm,
simple. And on the other flip side is that they rely too much on their team to do everything and to be the expert of everything, when that's where partnership comes into play, because you can reach out to your partner and be like, hey, you're an expert in this. We don't Our tool doesn't do this. We'd love to have a quote from you to put it in here, and vice versa. And that's building a good ecosystem where you're not putting too much pressure on both your internal or external partnership, your internal team or your external partnerships.
I love it. I love it. I get a sense that you're very organized, and I don't know if
It's that
it's maybe is it,
engineer, that
yeah, I know. I was
engineering
gonna say,
degree.
is it probably the engineering degree that's like you're very organized. It sounds like you kind of like look at all the angles and maximizing like all the efforts for everything that you guys are doing there, which is it's fantastic. I think it's kind of like, yeah. So yeah, just the way that you kind of like talk through your process, it sounds very much, yeah, just very organized and intentional in terms of like what you guys are doing there. So, I mean, how big is your team? Just so that like the folks that are listening can kind of like put in a framework of like,
Sure.
yeah,
So we have
yeah.
a really small agile team. We have a marketing manager, we have an SEO manager, and then there's me as a content manager, and I have an editor. And then we each have probably a couple of freelancers, five each, the
Mm,
most, five. So it's like very agile. It's very like we can't afford to like once we make a strategy, we stick to it and execute it, measure it. If it
mm-hmm,
works, it works. We continue. If it doesn't, we're like, okay, we move on to the next thing, right?
mm.
Which again is why I have to like slow down for the quarterly meetings. Let's reflect on everything.
Yeah, yeah. And odd question, but is everything sort of like eventually roll up to revenue targets or revenue goals or revenue based goals?
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
especially when you're working directly with a founder or a CEO. That is their primary focus.
Mm.
Calls that I've had with CEOs my entire life working, in every marketing call, they sound like the company is going to collapse and the roof is going to burn down. But that's their weird way of like motivating the marketing team to hit quota. Like it doesn't matter if we're having a good year or a bad year. Like the house is always on fire,
On
right?
fire,
Revenue is
yeah.
always, yeah.
That's so true. That's so true. I guess, as we wrap up, like, what's some advice? You've been like in this space for quite a while. I really consider you an expert. Like, in terms of communicating your strategies and your goals, just whether it's like, laterally with your team, or like, higher ups, to leadership and folks above you in the executive level. Like, do you have any advice in terms of like, communicating those goals and like letting them see sort of what you see? Because sometimes it's really, it's kind of difficult. They're kind of focused on a certain metric, but you're like, we got to do all these other things, to be impactful.
I mean, three things probably come to mind.
Yeah,
Number
awesome.
one is that if you're going to say that this is something that you believe in, you can't simply say, I think we need to do this. You need to kind of come with facts like XYZ is doing this strategy. This is how I've compared both of ours. This is why we should implement it. Coming with facts if you can. Two, if you can't come with facts, again, you need to come with what's the long game of it, because even if it's a short win, you need to tie it to something. And if it's something that requires a long strategy, what's a short win that's associated with? Because a lot of SaaS companies, SaaS owners are very, very results oriented. They want to see things quickly, even when you know things take time. And that's a battle that you have to be prepared to fight with. And sometimes that means bringing up the same thing every single month until it gets done. And the third thing is taking ownership for it. If you believe in this strategy or you believe in creating this type of content, take ownership for it and just know, like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this while I'm doing the other things that you need me to do. But I want to prove that this is going to bring revenue. This is going to bring impact. This is going to bring branding. For example, one of the things that I had to convince was offsite sharing of content, which was Reddit. And it was like Reddit is a community, but Reddit is actually an underrated marketing source. It's also on the top pages of Google, right? Sometimes the questions will be there. And then me saying like, I believe in this, even though you don't. I took the time every single month to go on, kind of, do Reddit strategy, linking in Visme, and then we got a paid conversion from that. And that was when the CEO was like, "Oh, yeah, we should do more of this." And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I've been trying to tell you." So it's just those three
Mm.
things that you have to keep in mind that I've personally had to do. There's obviously more, but those are the three things that come up to me.
I love it. I love it. Those are great tips. I have seen a lot of Reddit. Also, Victoria, when I was, so in the summer, we were traveling to Asia, and everybody went to Reddit. It was really, I was like, oh, weird. I've had, like, back home, I've never, I mean, I know there's a few folks, but like even here in Vancouver with friends, like they don't look at Reddit as much. But yeah, definitely other cities, there's definitely a lot of Reddit action going on. Um, Okay, this is great. I don't want to take up more of your time. I want to respect your time here, but I guess my
You
last
can always
question
bring
is
me
like,
back.
I will. We are. You definitely have to come back. I think there's a lot of things that I'd love to talk to you about, but I think the main thing is that you've been in this for a while. You kind of seen where the industry has shifted, and obviously technology and AI and all these things really have a lot to play. The Google updates always throwing a wrench into things. Where do you think, like, let's say 2-3 years from now, we're having a discussion like, what should somebody do today to sort of position themselves for success when it comes to content marketing? Um, yeah, I don't want to lead the witness on the answer, but
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, what should they be doing today to, like, for the next few
For
years, really
content
set them
marketing, I
themselves? Yeah.
think uh, your one is don't solely focus on content marketing. Again, having
Mm,
a 360-degree look on what you need to do. So being very versed with SEO changes, things that are happening. Depending on what your SaaS product is, keeping up to date with industries, the top competitors and top brands that are there, because those little things bleed into the way that you create content. And then two is sharpen your skills. It doesn't matter if you've been doing content marketing for 1 year or for 10 years. taking a course, the moment you start to think, I don't have anything else to learn in marketing, you're starting to lie to yourself. There's
Yeah.
always something to learn. So it's just finding the right person that you can kind of just go to. I know there are a lot of like coaches and courses out there, but follow people that you trust. I found on LinkedIn there are a lot of people that I trust that share the courses that they've taken, and it's
Mm,
been really good. One thing I'm personally going to do is a hook writing course for LinkedIn. Um,
nice.
just yeah, just something to keep you agile. And three is networking, like being around people. It's so easy to be in your own echo chamber, having that bounce off of another person to be like, I don't think that, that's 100%, the nicest way possible. But having that network to kind of learn from and feed from definitely keeps you sharp. And in the next 2 to 3 years, there'll probably even be new marketing positions that didn't even exist because of AI. So
Mm,
if you're currently in a position where you don't feel like marketing is for you, or if you're in the right place, it could be that your position or your title hasn't even been invented yet, but it's on its way because of the ships of AI and because of the new way that marketing is changing.
that's so good. That's so good. So, are you planning to be more active on LinkedIn? Is that what the course is going to be for?
Yes, the
Yeah.
course is definitely to be more active on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is its own type of beast, and
Yeah.
I find it a new challenge.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Yeah, we're looking at LinkedIn the same way as well, and uphill battle to get some of the executives, to get active on it. But yeah, so yeah, no, that's great. That's great. This has been really good, Victoria. Like I said, way overdue for us to connect and do a sort of a episode here, and yeah, but this has been really good. We definitely have to get you back. What's the best way to connect with you for the folks that are listening that want to learn more? Maybe yeah, just follow along your journey.
Yeah, so you can always find me on LinkedIn at Victoria Lana Taylor. Super easy to find. And then you can also reach out to me on my website, which is www.victoriataylormarketing.com. And if you want to check out a little bit more about Visme as well, Visme, Visme, you can look for it on all the social media platforms and the website. And you can learn a little bit more about how Visme can help you with your content creation as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Victoria. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you for having me, Rob. Bye.